Hi everyone, I'm Mac, I'm the developer of Brick Odyssey. So in this video I'm going to comment over this gameplay footage that I recorded earlier, and hopefully I'll be able to give out some useful tips and tricks that you can use to beat the game. So earlier today I was watching a stream of someone playing Brick Odyssey, and the chat was talking about the game. The usual stuff, like how the game is so ugly and everything. No, that's fair, it's fine. And then someone mentioned that they were stuck at storm level 6 and that they were really struggling at getting higher. And this is the comment that they posted. I'm gonna show it on screen and read it out loud. I feel like the dev hasn't balanced it at all, and it's probably not possible and certainly not realistic to win at the higher levels. There are some people with the Storm 15 achievement, but I wonder if they've save edited. So yeah, I thought it was funny. It made me laugh because, well, I definitely spent a lot of time balancing the game, and I can beat Storm level 15 pretty reliably now. And usually I try not to interact too much in the chat because I want to let people talk without drawing too much attention on me, you know, because I'm the dev and stuff. So, but this I had to react. I replied actually. I told them, of course, the game was beatable at Storm level 15, and then I suggested that, well, maybe I should make some videos where I would share some tricks. And they actually replied that that would be very helpful and that they would appreciate that. So here I am, I guess. So yeah, overall it was a really fun conversation. The stream was great, I had lots of fun. I'm always really happy to receive feedback, so it was great talking with actual players. And yeah, I had a great time. I asked them what hero would they want to see me play, and they say, well, you should just do all of them. And sure, okay, I'll do all of them. I decided that I would start with the Paladin, because he's maybe a bit easier than the other ones, and there's a bit less to talk about his specific mechanics. So I'll be able in this first video to talk more about general tips that applies to all the heroes. So tips about the bricks, ball movements, recalls, elite bosses, stuff like that. So let's start looking at the footage now. Here I decided to go for the regen brick. They're really good for the Paladin because don't forget that they also grant an active charge, and in my opinion the Paladin benefits the most from that. And interestingly enough, both bricks are on top of each other right in front of me, so I'm just gonna use a forced ejection to get them both. And I'm gonna speed up the footage here because there's not so much to say about these early fights. I'm just basically trying to heal as much as I can. Here I'm going to take the regen brick again. Another reason I like taking regen bricks early is because, as you can see, at storm level 7 and higher, you start to run wounded. So getting early regen bricks allows to start healing up a bit while the fights are still easy enough. Also, because of the initial relic that I got, which was followed by a thorn brick, I'm starting to think at this point that I want to move toward a thorn build. And regen bricks are great in thorn builds because you need some sustain if you want to intentionally take damage to trigger the thorns at some point. Now we're getting to the shop, and there's actually quite a lot to say about how I decide to spend my gold here. You can see that I quickly check which boss I'm going to face, and I see that it is the Goblin Warlord. So having a few holy bricks is always great, and since this one is on sale, it's an instant buy. Then I know that the Goblin Warlord is quite easy if you can get the board to reset quickly. For this you need destructive bricks, as I usually call them. I'll talk more about this concept once I'm done with the shop. But rocket bricks and explosive are both in this category of destructive bricks, so I grabbed them both. I always try to get at least one reset threshold upgrade because the first one is so cheap, and since I already have so much thorn, 2 is quite a lot for so early in the game, I decided to skip this one and get the threshold upgrade instead. Here we have an interesting fight to talk about. I know the small window on the left is very tempting, but I have to admit that it's a bit of a red herring. It's definitely possible to get inside the tower through the window, but here what I'm going to do is I'm going to damage a brick and instantly recall the ball to follow up with a forced ejection. So let's talk about forced ejections. In case you don't know, when you don't manually launch the ball, it gets automatically ejected after 5 seconds. This gives the ball a speed buff, and the next brick it hit will take twice the damage. So this would be enough to destroy a reinforced brick in one hit, but the forced ejection also make it so the ball will continue to the first brick it hits, if its HP are low enough. So yeah, basically ignoring the window and using a forced ejection is, in my opinion, an easier and more reliable way to get the ball inside the tower. Now here I could have intentionally let the ball drop to let the guardian angel protection trigger, but my main focus is to avoid taking damage, so I choose to keep the protection active instead and just take it slow. Having the protection active can allow me to let the ball drop if an enemy projectile ever gets in the way when I'm trying to bounce it. Note how throughout this fight I've been slowing the bar down. For those who don't know, by default you can hold shift or use the right analog stick of your controller to slow down the bar. This is very useful when you have to make small precise movements. Now the fight is almost over. I feel like it's an easy fight if you don't panic. Just focus on dodging the projectiles. Remember that the siege engine attacks deal way more damage than dropping the ball, so prioritize dodging the projectiles over catching the ball. Nice easy relic. I'm going to take the whetstone here because it provides easy and consistent scaling. And now is a good time to talk about how I categorize the bricks in my mind. Remember earlier when I mentioned destructive bricks? Well, I like to separate the bricks upgrade in 3 different categories: destructive, scaling, and defensive. These are just the names I gave them, but there might be better ways to call them, so if you have an idea on how to name those categories, please let me know in a comment. I'm curious to know what terms the community would come up with. So, as I see it, the destructive bricks are bricks that help destroy other bricks. It includes the pyro, explosion, multi-ball, and rocket bricks. These bricks are very important because sure they help dealing damage, but they also help destroying other upgraded bricks. If you often get stuck in the later levels because you can't destroy bricks fast enough, it's probably because you don't have enough destructive bricks. Next, the scaling bricks. These are bricks that boost your offensive capabilities for the duration of the whole fight. It includes the furry brick, the thorn brick, and the new poison brick. Contrary to destructive bricks that have an immediate effect, these scaling bricks become stronger the longer the fight is. It is vital to have enough scaling for certain fights. If you sometimes get stuck against an elite or a boss that can heal himself and it feels like you don't have enough damage to bring him down, you probably don't have enough scaling bricks. The last category is the defensive bricks: regen, block, and holy bricks. There's not much to say here, just make sure you have enough of those to sustain yourself through the longer fights. In my opinion, having a solid deck of bricks is all about balancing those 3 categories. Destructive upgrades are important to go through the reinforced bricks that are more common in World 2 and 3, so make sure you get enough of those early. Scaling bricks are primarily important for boss fights, especially the final bosses. This is why earlier I said having already 2 thorn bricks at the first shop was almost too much. I'm almost at the first boss, the Goblin Warchief. This one is typically easier with a lot of destructive bricks, because it makes resetting the board easier. The Hydra, on the other hand, is usually easier with a bit of scaling, because it reduces the amount of head you need to destroy to reach the point where you can kill it before it heals itself. This fight is pretty straightforward, so I'll speed up the video a bit here. The boss basically just keeps attacking faster and faster until the board resets. I have enough destructive upgrades here. Rockets are especially good against him, so I'm not too worried about this fight. I just aim at my upgraded bricks and try to be efficient in the ball movements. Now that the fight is over, I get to choose my first heroic relic. Since I chose the thorn bricks as my method of scaling in this run, I'm going to take the Silice of Consecration, which will help me sustain when I take damage to trigger the thorns. Now I'm heading toward an event, and I'm going to encounter the Vampire. Reducing my max HP can be a bit scary with a Thorn build, but the way to a successful Thorn build is to have enough sustain, so I'm confident that I'll have enough sustain to survive with half the HP. I honestly don't think it's the correct decision here, but I kinda wanted to show that Storm 15 can be beaten even with some bad decisions. You may have noticed that in all the recent choices I've been picking up as much destructive bricks as I could. This is because at this point I feel like I don't have enough destructive power. I only have 2 pyro, 3 explo, and 1 rocket, and no extra relics to help me with destroying bricks, so I'm racking up on destructive options when I can. Now we get to a fight, and I see that I have a holy brick right in front of me. I don't think many players know this, but in Brick Odyssey, all undeads are vulnerable to holy bricks. This means that I made sure to design the layouts of all undead levels in a way that make holy bricks quite strong. Note that I again used what I like to call an offensive recall, followed by an intentional drop of the ball to get the holy brick to trigger as early as possible. This fight basically plays itself at this point, so I'm going to speed up a bit. And I get more thorns, that's good. I need to work on my scaling now. followed by a nice event where I again get more thorns. And now I'm quite glad I chose to save my gold earlier. Now I'm also stacking up a couple of block upgrades, that's good, they work well in a thorn build, and I also have the Broken Glass Relic that uses them to improve my thorns. There's nothing really special about this shop here, I just buy the cheap upgrades, the reset threshold and the brick that is on sale, and then I opt to get the regen brick instead of the explosive. Both paths are identical here, so I just get an event. Here I'm not too worried about getting a cursed brick because they're actually quite good with a thorn build. They don't deal that much damage and it's an easy way to trigger the thorns. And oh wow, I'm getting so much regen bricks here. I get to the chest, sadly all 3 relics doesn't interest me that much. I take the Pegasus Feather, it's pretty good on the Paladin I guess, and yeah, it's extra sustain for the thorn build. I get to the next fight, and here I try to reset the bricks to see if I can get an accessible holy brick, because this fight is an undead fight again. But it doesn't work, both holy bricks are a bit hard to reach, so I just end up using the same method as earlier to dig a hole to access the center of the mausoleum. I end up using the hole a bit later, so I'm just gonna let this fight play, and maybe while we watch this I can talk about this video a bit. It's my first time doing this, the whole recording a long ass video and talking over it, so yeah, please let me know what you think of this format. As I mentioned earlier, I plan to make other videos of me going through Storm 15 with all the other heroes. And I was thinking maybe I won't do this type of commentary over pre-recorded footage, which is actually quite complicated and time-consuming, so I'm thinking about just commenting live as I play, and I might end up doing this live on Twitch, so let me know what you think about all that. I really thrive on encouragement, so please let me know if that sounds good, and I'm going to put the link to my Twitch account in the description if you're interested. I'm not sure when will I stream, I don't plan on doing it too often, but yeah, I think it can be a fun experience. Oh, also, tell me what hero you'd like to see featured in the next video. I guess the Ranger is the next on the list in terms of complexity, but it might be too similar to the Paladin. The Ranger has a bit more destructive power and a bit less sustain, so you basically want to compensate that by slightly changing your priorities when picking up brick upgrades. But yeah, I think the Shade or the Elementalists are going to be really interesting, especially if played live and on Storm level 15. They're a bit less reliable and a bit harder, so yeah, it's gonna be fun. So now we're getting to the next boss, the Heliamphora Bellicosa, basically the belligerent flower. This fight took me quite a bit of time, so I'm going to speed it up a little while I talk about the boss. I'm quite happy with this design. Basically the flower spawns a lot of small balls that you have to juggle, or they will damage you when they are dropped. You have 2 options to get rid of them. Either you bounce them so they touch the green bricks in the center. This will cause them to get consumed by the plant and she will heal 20 HP. The other option is that they also get destroyed when they collide with the ball, and this has no drawbacks, so it's preferable to use this method when possible. Note that if there are a lot of pollen around and you're struggling to touch them with the ball, you can just recall the ball and move the paddle around while the ball is sticking to it to just clear as much pollen as you can in the 5 seconds you get before the ball is rejected. So yeah, this fight was a bit long, but I have a solid and well-balanced build, so I never really got too worried here. I hesitate a bit for my second heroic relic. The Oathbreaker Flame is quite good because it gives some extra destructive power that the Paladin really lacks, but I ended up choosing a safer option, mainly because I accepted to help the vampire earlier, so I'm opting for the Aureola here. And now we're starting World 3 with an elite fight. I get a bit worried when I see this layout. You can see I take quite a bit of time to look at the board and come up with a strategy. This is really something I encourage you to do before starting a hard fight. Take some time to look at where your upgraded bricks are. I'm going to explain my thought process here and why it took me so long to start the fight. Basically, in this fight, scaling is not so important because the fight is mostly about speed and killing the cultists fast enough before they get in melee range. So I wanted to focus on getting to my destructive bricks, but as you can see, all my destructive bricks were either high up in the back or inside the reinforced altar thing in the center. All the easily accessible bricks were either my thorn bricks, which aren't so important in such a short fight like this one, or my regens, but I was already full life when starting the fight, so I wasn't too interested in getting those early. So yeah, I was quite worried before starting this elite fight, especially because of my reduced max HP pool, and my HP ends up getting quite low at some point, all the while the cult members were hitting me in melee, so yeah, I had to be very careful with the projectiles, and I think I was right to be worried, because this fight definitely could have ended my run. So moral of the story, I guess be careful when going for early elites when you arrive in a new world. And I grabbed the mushroom here. I think this one is just my favorite relic. I just love its effect. I end up resting after this fight because my HP is so low. I don't even heal that much from it because my max HP is also so low, but I just didn't feel like getting in the next fight with less than 30 HP. And I guess now is a good time to talk about when to rest while I speed up the footage for those next basic fights. So, I don't know if you realize this, but I very rarely used the option to heal in this run. I think this might have been the first time actually. This is a key point to a successful run at higher storm level. It's very easy to get stuck in a loop where you have to heal because you had a hard fight, but by doing this you prevent yourself from getting a brick upgrade, so next fights are also going to be harder because you don't have enough upgrades, which in turn makes it so you need even more healing. And yeah, by doing this you end up falling behind on the difficulty curve, which means that enemies are getting stronger faster than you, which makes it even harder to then catch up. And yeah, if you reach this point, your run is basically doomed to snowball into a loss. How to prevent that situation from happening? Well, keep in mind that sure you have a lot of HP in this game and healing is pretty cheap, but you should still always be very careful about not getting hit, because those damage adds up and it might not seem like it, but having an extra upgrade early instead of having to heal can really increase your chances in future fights. There's really not much tips I can give here apart from just don't get hit, lol. Maybe practice dodging. Keep in mind that sometimes it's better to let the ball drop instead of trying to save it and getting hit in the process. Try to maximize the healing you can get during fights. Maybe put the healing relics a bit higher on your priority list. You can try to delay the moment of resting as much as possible. Don't be afraid to go in a fight at half HP. Those extra upgrades you'll get from healing later can definitely help you take less damage in the next fight. I grabbed the pyro upgrade here and in the previous fight too. My destructive power was starting to feel a bit lacking. And now I'm getting to the last shop. I'm using thorns as my method of scaling in this run, so I'm just ignoring the other options here. I just grab the other brick upgrades and get 2 threshold increase, because having a higher reset threshold is usually very interesting against the final bosses, as you will soon be able to see. Now we have an elite fight, and this one will be the Primordial Essence. This one returns a spell at you every time you destroy an upgraded brick. In case you don't know, the spell returned depends on the upgrade, so destroying a pyro brick triggers the flaming projectiles attack, destroying an explosive triggers the mines. Generally speaking, all his offensive capabilities are triggered by destructive bricks. Destroying a block brick has an effect that I'm sure most players didn't notice. It makes the essence enter a defensive stance for 3 seconds, reducing all damage it takes by 80%. Look at how the little orbs of the essence are close to each other right now while in defensive stance, and they spread apart when the effect finishes. In theory, if you wouldn't destroy any upgraded brick during this fight, this elite wouldn't be much of a threat. He just casts one random spell every 5 seconds. This fight is interesting because its difficulty depends on your current build. The main danger is having your destructive bricks trigger a chain reaction. The best way to prevent that is to recall the ball when you feel that it starts getting a bit crazy. Usually, recalling after every reset is a good rule of thumb. So yeah, take it slow, avoid destroying too much brick at once, and this fight should just be an easy extra relic. Maybe if you really want to push the skill ceiling, you can try to avoid destroying block bricks when you're about to burst him. But yeah, easy relic here, and I'm gonna grab the fishing pole. Now I'm gonna take another pyro brick here because I feel like I have enough scaling power with 7 thorns and all the relics I got, and I still feel like my destructive power is just a bit too low. Here in this event I really don't want to reduce my max HP further, and I really like having a higher reset threshold for the final boss, so I'm just gonna sacrifice a pyro brick, but look at that, I'll get one back right after. And now we're heading toward another elite, and this one will be the Ice Revenant. Great, so this one actually gets quite easier the higher your reset threshold is. For this fight, you basically want to keep the ice block standing for as long as possible. After the hailstorm, the Revenant will launch 2 bombs, 3 here because of the storm level. Those bombs will destroy the ice blocks without triggering an attack from the hero. They always appear right above the paddle, so if you remember to quickly move in the open right after the hailstorm finishes, you can prevent them from destroying the barrier. However, sometimes you may want the bombs to destroy the barrier to help you reach the reset threshold. The rest of the fight is pretty easy here, so I'll just take this moment to talk about the higher Storm levels modifiers. Storm level 14 reads harder elite fights, and Storm level 15 is harder boss fights. But what does it mean exactly? This is not just a simple HP or damage buff applied to all elites and bosses, because I usually find this to be a pretty boring design choice as an Ascension level modifier. Instead, all bosses and elites in Brick Odyssey have a special harder version of their fight. So, for example, here their Ice Revenant launches an extra Ice Bomb and a few more Hell Waves. Usually, these harder versions will buff the mechanic that make the elite unique, so having a good understanding of the fights and knowing how to counter every elite is important. For example, in hard mode, the Frog King will heal more after eating the ball, and he also gets stronger over time. So it's really important that you understand how to counter the frog once you get to this level. But you have 13 previous storm levels to practice, so you should be fine. We didn't see the frog in this run, but maybe he will appear in the next video, and then I can share some insider info on how to beat it reliably. Here I get another tone-related relic, so that's nice. And yeah, talking about the next video, I guess now is a good time to do the usual YouTube-related stuff. Well, I'm not really a YouTuber, so I don't really care about getting more subscribers, but yeah, I guess if you want to be notified when the next video comes out, you can definitely do the bell thingy. However, I guess likes are really good for visibility, just like good reviews on Steam, so if you enjoyed the game, getting a few more of those could really help it grow, because yeah, the game could really benefit from having a bit more visibility right now. I know it's my fault, I'm not really good with marketing, but hey, it's my first time publishing a game and I'm learning a lot, so I'm just happy to see how things are going for now. Also, let me know in the comments if there's anything you'd like to know or see featured in the next video. As you can see, I just spent about 25 minutes talking about the game, and there's even more things that I wanted to say, but I didn't have the time to fit it in. So yeah, you can imagine how much I like talking about things I'm passionate about. So I'll be more than happy to answer any question that you may have. Or just, you know, tell me how you discovered the game, who's your favorite hero, against which elite are you struggling the most, what relic would you like to see added or removed from the game, anything really. I really thrive on positive feedback. And look at that, we're already at the final boss, the Crystal Amalgam. This fight was a masterclass, really, there's so many things to say here. Right away, you can see that I spent a lot of time observing the brick layout. With only 100 max HP, I can't afford to make too many mistakes, so I'm really thinking everything through. I'm not only looking at where I want to start, but I'm also paying attention to where there are other weak points, like the blue crystal having an accessible explosive brick right next to it, stuff like that. I decide to focus on the right side, where I have a higher concentration of upgrades. I kinda failed my initial launch, and yeah, I had a rough start in this fight. For those of you who don't know, this boss mechanic revolves around the crystals on the board. He has 3 offensive crystals at the top, and 3 green crystals that heal him for 15 HP every 5 seconds. You can destroy those crystals like you would destroy any other brick, and it's pretty much up to you to be efficient with that and to decide if you want to focus on the top crystals to reduce his damage output or on the green crystals to reduce his healing. Look at how I'm going to take care of that red crystal. I see that it has a pyro brick right under it, so I used a forced ejection to destroy a first pyro brick. Then, since I don't have any recalls left, I just let the ball drop so I can send it straight through the pyro brick into the crystal. Crystals usually need 3 bounces to be destroyed, but with the fresh pyro buff, it's enough to just hit it once. With only 1 red crystal left, I'm trying to get those green ones now, but my aim isn't so great and I fail. Like every other boss that has a heal, having enough scaling is very important here. This boss can easily heal faster than you're able to deal damage if you don't have enough scaling bricks. I quickly look at the reset threshold on the right and I see that I have 3 more bricks to destroy before the board resets. So there's 4 things in my mind right now. 1, I want to destroy those green crystals to stop the healing. 2, I want to grab that last thorn brick because the fight is far from over and it's good scaling. 3, my mushroom relic will trigger in about 15 seconds, so I want the reset to occur before that. And 4, I want to try to get the ball in a good position when triggering the reset so it gets stuck close to a crystal. I reach most of these objectives. The reset occurs right before the mushroom triggers and the last brick I destroy is right next to the blue crystal. Sadly, the ball bounces away without hitting the crystal, but at least the path is now open. Here I get a really good bounce straight into the red crystal. Having a red one gone early like that after a reset will really help alleviate some pressure. Destroying a crystal triggers a confusion that inverts the controls, so you go left instead of right. This can be really deadly with so many projectiles to dodge and a laser to avoid. Paying attention to when a crystal is about to get destroyed can really help with reducing the impact of the confusion. But yeah, I know it's not so easy to do with so many things going on. Here I recall while the ball is under the effect of the pyro buff. This is a great way to burn through bricks in a precise angle. Sadly, I then fail to position myself correctly and the ball gets force ejected. With only 2 crystals and about 13 bricks left before the reset, I have a bit of time to think about my objectives before I hit the threshold. I want to get rid of the last green crystal, so I start working on that. The ball bounces around at the top and suddenly I'm at 1 brick left before the reset. So I instantly recall the ball and just like earlier, I try to make sure the last brick I hit is in a favorable position. Doing this allows me to instantly get rid of the blue crystal after the reset, which again is a drastic reduction of the pressure on me. Here you can clearly see me hesitating. I didn't have time to analyze the board after the reset yet, and that's what I'm doing while the forced ejection timer advances. My thorn buff is getting pretty high though, and you can see the boss taking huge chunks of damage every time I get hit. So yeah, at this point the fight is pretty much secured. He can't kill me without dying to the thorns first. So there you have it, that's how to beat Storm 15 with the Paladin. This was my first run when I started recording. As I said in the beginning, I can beat it pretty reliably now. I just don't want you guys to think that I had to start over like 100 times before finally getting a win. This is also why I kinda want to record the next episode while live streaming, so you can see how many attempts I need in order to win with the other heroes. I guess I could also do a victory streak challenge. Anyway, this was fun to do. I can't believe I managed to analyze and talk over almost 30 minutes of brick breaking footage. Think about it, theory crafting over a brick breaker gameplay. It's just not two things that you'd imagine in the same sentence. I think that's a good sign that the game has a very interesting depth and a high skill ceiling. And yeah, I hope more people will realize it. Or maybe it's a sign that I'm just chatty, who knows. So yeah, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.